Good morning, everyone. Welcome back to our morning coffee time. Let's see, 45 of our friends are here. How's everyone this morning? Tuesday, June the 23rd. Just past the solstice, moving into fullness of summer. We're going to have our first truly warm day here today at the Hermitage. So, okay, I see a lot of double thumbs up. So, thank you for, so it's good to know that people can see and hear me before we get too far into this. Good morning, Adrienne. I see your comment here that you integrated some of the advice I gave about countering dullness, practicing lying down. I thought about it later in the day, actually. Came back up into my mind, and I said something like this, but I don't know how clearly it sort of came through. It might also be useful to sort of make sure that you take breaks and break up the amount of time that you spend lying down, unless the mind is really energetic. So it's a bit easier to manage the energy sitting for a long period of time, I think, than lying down and meditating. And so you might need to change postures more. So, and so you can just practice in shorter chunks, and then maybe get up and do something. Also, if one's getting into habits of dullness, and this would sort of touch on almost no matter what posture you're sitting or what's going on, then you really want to make a determination to try to cultivate energy in your life. And there's a bunch of different ways that one can approach that. So, but just paying attention to anything that freshens the mind up, energizes the mind in a beneficial way before one sits down to engage in their formal practice. So sometimes just taking a shower or a bath or cleaning one's room brightens the mind. Walking meditation, a little exercise, of course. Listening to Dhamma, endless ways to kind of lift the energy before one then kind of tries to engage in the mind. And if you're in a phase where there's a very durable sort of challenge with dullness, then put a little creativity into arousing energy. And be one devoted to energy. There's these wonderful passages in the suttas where the Buddha talks about being one who's devoted to the cultivation of energy. So probably the most common one, or the one cited the most, is advice to new monastics. So I saw a request from Stan up here. Good morning, Stan. Ajahn, could you speak more about how to use faith to further one on the path? Well, I can do that. It's actually something that was coming to mind this morning, just thinking back to the conversation we had yesterday. Shelley asked a question, how do we know we're on the path? And the first part of my answer was kind of investigation of the quality of faith that one's cultivated. Now, that term I know for some people is they have a difficult relationship with it because I, and maybe many of you here, come from a culture that's steeped in faith-based religions or theistic religions. So, if that's the case, then maybe the word confidence might be more meaningful and does honor to the Pali word sattha, which is what we're using faith to kind of translate. Sattha, faith and confidence, conviction, and I think of faith and conviction as really one of the foundational spiritual faculties. And I think growing up, faith was something that I thought more along the lines of either you have it or you don't. And this is kind of the problem of personality view. It thinks of things through identity and through, well, you can even sort of just think of it. I was born with it, or I wasn't, or I am not that, or I'm not a strong in this or strong in that. But these things exist because of causes and conditions, really. And faith isn't something, it's something that we might be sort of in touch with, but I think it serves us so much better to sort of think of it as a spiritual faculty and one that needs to be nurtured and cared for and strengthened into maturity. And if motivation and energy directed towards our spiritual life and our spiritual practice is flagging, this is oftentimes one of the best things to reflect back on, is like, what's going on with the faculty of faith and confidence that I have in Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha. And I mean that kind of in the most profound sense, not just faith in the historical Buddha, faith in the Dhamma teachings, and the Sangha, represented by either the Arya Sangha, the enlightened Sangha, or the conventional Sangha. But like what those qualities are really speaking to, faith in awakening, faith in the potential for us to awaken. And if you think of it as a faculty that needs to be nurtured, then it's like anything. There are various practices and various commitments that one needs to make to cultivate that. And I'm sure many of them we're already engaged in, but maybe we don't think of them sort of in light of caring for the faculty of faith that we need to solidify ourselves to nourish a long-term endeavor in developing the path. So fundamental, I think, to it, and somewhat difficult for many of us, and probably many of you are in the chat right now, is association with the wise, good friends, Kalyanamitta. This is just a tremendous source of nurturing our faith. It has some connection and relationship to it, and it's best if such people are there, like physically in our lives. Of course, there are spiritual practitioners, teachers, monks, nuns, friends that we have a relationship with, we spend time, um, we draw near, we exchange ideas, we share our practice, we see their examples. This goes a long ways towards feeding and nurturing and caring for our faith, and also it's we can practice doing that for other people through spiritual community, through sangha, and when we talk about the gradual training or the gradual path, this is one of the fundamental places that the Buddha starts when he talks about the gradual training and the gradual path, and I can't say enough about that. Now, for many people living outside of a Buddhist country, of course, it's hard. There aren't that many monasteries. There aren't that many monks and nuns yet. There aren't even that many Buddhist practitioners physically in our communities, in our neighborhoods. In Thailand, there's almost hardly a village that doesn't have a monastery, and many of them have more than one. And there's a whole variety of monasteries. So they're blessed with that, even though everyone doesn't make perfect use of such a blessing or such an opportunity. But we do, there are all these ways that like we're using right now to sort of support and substitute that. And there's just, we have the blessings of such easy access to teachings in this day and age. And many people have commented during this time of the coronavirus pandemic, it's even enhanced and expanded. There's more live Dhamma going on from people in my community, my tradition, than typically there is, because we know the importance of these relationships and being a Kalyana Mitta to our friends. And with the restriction that we're under, there's extra efforts to try to be available and nurture those relationships and nurture the faith. I've said before here on the stream before, I don't really consider myself the foremost in anything. Sometimes I think of myself more as a coach or a cheerleader, like trying to encourage myself and others to keep at it, because I see nothing more important than honoring whatever intuition, whatever faith you have in the capacity for humans to make good choices, to grow in goodness, to grow in kindness, to grow in peacefulness, and to grow in wisdom. And we need to have an array of practices, and we need to be sensitive to and reflect on, be mindful of, and recollect the faculty of faith and where we are with that, and make sure that we set our life up in a way that we have good friends, we have access to good friends, we have good teachers, we have, and we're spending our time in ways that deepen and nurture that faith and that confidence. Of course, ultimately, we want to go beyond that. But I see faith as not a small thing or just a beginning point. And yesterday I made the point that there's great evidence in the suttas that having great faith takes one quite far in this endeavor. Great faith is like great fuel. Great faith is like a great foundation. And I think without this, we burn ourselves out, or we run out of fuel, we run out of steam, or we fall back merely to the kind of karmic inheritance that one has. And one of the places I started off with my practice, even before I became a Buddhist, I reflected one day, whatever worldview I have right now, what seems right and wrong, what rings true to me, what I deem important and unimportant, it feels right. It feels like the truth. But I know I'm not free. And I know I'm not as happy and as peaceful and as skillful as I could be, or that I believe I could be, and that I see other people have attained, or I have faith that other people have attained higher levels of that. So there must be something wrong there. I need to look to others. I need to open up. I need to be inspired by others. I need to entertain the suggestions and the thoughts of others. And I didn't even really think of myself as religious at that point. I was kind of surprised to find myself in a monastery a couple years later. But part of the reason I found myself in a monastery a couple years later was because I knew I couldn't completely do this on my own and just fall back on what I'm calling here my karmic inheritance. I needed not just a guidance, but friendship and the support and the good advice of others, even admonishment and correction from others. And sangha and teachers and good teachings go a long way to nurture our faith, our motivation, our understanding, and our commitment to continue in this endeavor. So think about, as a spiritual faculty, it's a very important one, and reflect from time to time. What is it that I'm doing? What is it that I've committed to help protect, nurture, develop, deepen that? Until we no longer need the faculty of faith. But you never get rid of it altogether. I mean, I look at the best of my teachers, or I look at the example of the Buddha, and he's very explicit about many of the things he did and decisions that he made. He takes into consideration how it will inspire others, arouse faith in the faithless, or people who don't yet have faith in the potential of developing our goodness and the potential to awaken and overcome this unnecessary dukkha that's there in our lives. But also he talks about making choices about not just what he does, but how he arranges his community and how he encourages his students and disciples to live and practice and speak, to arouse faith in the faithless, and to protect and nurture and deepen the faith in those who already have faith in awakening, in Buddha Dhamma Sangha. So, of course, a big part of my strategy for that is being a monk and staying a monk, and protecting that commitment, not getting lost in other things. Now, after 20 some years, there's quite a few of my friends that have come and gone. And one doesn't know where one would end up without having made the choice that one has made. But I am so grateful to have this opportunity to live as a monk. Both the monastics that I live with and know, and also the lay people that are friends of the community and supporters of the community, are a huge part of what nurtures my own sort of sense of faith. Also, periodic and regular Dhamma discussion like this, monk chat, talking about these issues, talking about our practice and our experience. That always arouses an extra bit of faith and energy to keep focused on this. All the wonderful teachings. If you've been around for many years, a lot of the information in the Dhamma talks isn't all that new. And a lot of it is an exercise in rejuvenating our faith in Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha. And many a good Dhamma talk just leave you on a kind of faith high. And that's a good thing. That's a necessary thing, because we need that fuel to keep at it and keep going. Okay, well, that's a little bit about faith this morning. Let me spend some time scrolling through here and see if there's questions I've missed. My chat doesn't scroll along as I'm talking like this. There's just a little thing at the bottom that says new comments. So, saw an early question here from Gustavo. Good morning, Gustavo. Bante, I would like to know if you can explain the difference or how we can distinguish the path and the fruition in the first state of enlightenment, or sotapanna. That's a funny kind of technical question or point. Reading the suttas, and I think they go into it in the commentaries. They talk about well, it's in our chanting as the four characters, the 8 kinds of noble beings. So some of you would be familiar with that, but they talk about achieving the path and achieving the fruition of each of the 4 stages of enlightenment. And I'm reading your question that way, Gustavo, that's what you're referring to. And most of my teachers says it's, when I asked them about this, said it seems like it'd be rare that somebody achieves path and there isn't fruition, but there is some opportunity for there to be some gap there. I can't, personally myself, I've never been able to make much sense of it. But I think one of the best ways to think about what it means to be a sotapanna with any detail is just to look at teachings on the first 3 fetters. And to me, my reflection is the linchpin there is the overcoming the self-view. And knowing that it's not completely eradicated, but there is some direct experiential, deep, transformative understanding and relinquishment of holding to the view of self and one sees the relationship between that and dukkha. So there's other side effects that are said to come along with that, notably a significant diminishment of dukkha, a significant diminishment of greed and hatred. So let's see. Good morning, Abby. Ajahn Sudanto, can you discuss why it appears to be harder to let go of the concepts, thoughts regarding objects rather than the objects themselves? People, places, things. Thank you. Harder to let go of the concepts regarding objects rather than objects themselves. Yeah, I don't know that I have an answer for that today, Abby. Let me think about that. I'm not quite sure if you're pointing to the mental image or the difficulty in letting go of thought. So feel free to email me if you want to provide some additional detail. So hermitage@abhayagiri.org. I should probably type that out so I can pop that up on the screen. But let's see. Good morning, Linda. The word trust resonates with me in this. So, Linda, I think you're talking to faith, trust in awakening, or trust in Buddha Dhamma Sangha. Good morning, Samrit. Ajahn, when you say causes and conditions, what does it exactly refer to? Our past and present karma? No, it's more global than that, Samrit. Causes and conditions. And I think of it almost in a very global, naturalistic sort of way. So not everything is karma. And, what we really are trying to step outside of is this very pernicious sort of habit of selfing and always framing things through the lens of self and other. It's a very strong part of human consciousness to frame our conscious experience in terms of beings, self and other. And even when we think about karma, we think about it as my karma, not just a karmic momentum based on past intentions. So when I say causes and conditions, I'm thinking in a very idealistic sort of sense, like as globally as you can, about the whole status of that supports the reality of the present moment being the way it is. So that includes what's ever going on in the dimension of genetics and physics and biology and the weather, and there's all kinds of social conditions that we're influenced by. So we're affected very much by other people around us, what we're seeing and hearing and sensing. And it's not me, it's not mine, it's not myself. So when I say causes conditions, I'm thinking everything, whatever it is, what I can identify, and even all that, and especially all that I can't identify, as supporting the present moment being like this. Good morning, Moria. Faith in Buddha Dhamma Sangha is so essential and so helpful in these hard times. I agree. I had a similar thought this morning. One needs to be very careful in difficult times, heedful about how much attention you give to various things, and you should be giving attention to your faith and also Buddha Dhamma Sangha. It's very easy to get disillusioned, despondent, to lose your faith in humanity, the goodness of human beings, the blessings that are still there in our lives. Comic inheritance. Yeah, well, that's just the way I say it. It is comic. It is comic in some sense. Good morning, Adil. What is the predominant reason for a monastic to disrobe in your experience? It's difficult. I don't even some of my friends who have disrobed, listening to them, it's such a complex thing. It's a bit like, why do you love your wife, or why did you get divorced? And of course there are things that we can identify, but sometimes it's a lot more nuanced and profound than that. And I've known people that they've gone through difficult stretches, not just like difficult time in their practice, but very significant health problems that have compromised their ability to live and practice as a monastic the way they would like to. So I hate to kind of boil it down to a predominant reason. Something I always reflected on is for myself is when I believe my own delusions, then that will, if I ever disrobe, it will be because I've believed in my own delusions more than in Buddha Dhamma Sangha. So an example of that would be, a lack of self-confidence in my own ability to overcome obstacles, hindrances, overcome sensuality. And if I buy into the delusion that that's like a personal failing, it's about me or mine, and I lose faith in the capacity for all beings to have that potential, then it's easy to disrobe. So there's an interesting story where I think Paul Breiter, who was one of the early monks, relates this story of, and I might have this wrong, but I think it might be in something that Paul Breider wrote, but there was some sort of exchange with Ajahn Chah, some monk feeling dejected and wanting to disrobe, saying that he'd run out of good karma, and that's the reason why he thought he had to sort of disrobe. And Ajahn Chah said, no, if you've run out of good karma, then just go make some more fresh good karma. That's not a good reason to disrobe. And it's somewhat typical, I think, of the way many Thais maybe think about coming to robes. They see the having the karma to ordain and live as a monk as being very fortunate karma, which it is. But when they go through a really difficult time period and they're frustrated with the difficulties in their practice or their inability to live up to various ideals that they have for themselves as a monastic, then they can feel dejected, like, I don't have the karma for this. I'm not cut out for this. But they can, because they grow up in a culture that is steeped in this mental frame of evaluating things from karma, then they can easily feel like it's not just me. I don't have sufficient karma right now to live like this. So, okay, well, good to see you all, friends, on the stream this morning. A nice little reflection on faith today. Take that with you and reflect on it as you move through your day, taking care of the things that you need to do. Recollect and maybe re-examine what your own strategies are for cultivating, nurturing faith, and even think about just how it relates to the rest of this endeavor of trying to cultivate goodness and overcome dukkha in the world. And most importantly, remember, it's not me or mine. It's built of causes and conditions, and if you feel it's flagging, then go out and do the things that we know help boost and nurture and strengthen and develop it. So, okay, be well, friends. I'll see you tomorrow morning.